Okay, so I'm going to tell you about what's new with PsychToolbox in particular in the past 2 years since we presented at VSS in 2022. And Mario Kleiner, the developer of PsychToolbox, will be available afterwards to answer any of your questions. I want to give an overview to start with of what PsychToolbox is. It's an open source toolbox for flexible experiment design with the most reliable timing and most advanced features currently available. It's optimally used with the open source Linux operating system, and that's because its development goes beyond the toolbox itself. Mario also basically optimizes Linux to give the best possible timing, which is only possible if you have control over the operating system itself as well. This unfortunately isn't possible on Windows and macOS, but Mario also finds workarounds and optimizations to make timing as good as possible on these operating systems as well, giving you as many options for your experiments as possible. PsychToolbox is a MATLAB toolbox, but it also works well on GNU Octave as a free MATLAB alternative for many common use cases. PsychToolbox has a really wide community. It's cited by over 37,000 articles as of May 2024. There are also many toolboxes that build on top of PsychToolbox, one of which is PsychBench that you'll be hearing from in a talk later in this session. PsychToolbox core routines for response collection and sound are also even instrumental for Python-based toolkits like PsychoPy 3. I want to go over many of the notable new features that have been added in the past couple of years, the biggest of which is the new OpenXR extended reality driver that gives improved virtual reality support via this industry standard multi-vendor OpenXR API. This means you can use it on most available head-mounted displays on Linux and Windows, and you can also use many VR-tracked input controllers. There's also a high extensibility for future enhancements, for example, in domains of mixed reality or augmented reality, where you can combine virtual elements with your natural visual scene. As well, for virtual reality, many HMDs now come with an eye tracker built in, and there's initial eye tracking support for OpenXR as well. You've got a basic monocular or cyclops eye that combines gaze vectors for the two eyes into one under Linux and Windows, with any VR, HMD, or eye tracker supported by OpenXR runtimes. There's also binocular eye tracking under Windows with supported HTC VR HMDs, and both have been tested so far with the HTC Vive Pro Eye on Windows 10. More for eye tracking, there's a massive update of the iLink toolbox. That's a toolbox for SR Research iLink gaze trackers on Linux, Windows, and macOS. Some of these updates are gaze tracking for stereoscopic display setups, where you have different visual stimuli for each eye, use of animated stimuli and movies for gaze tracker calibration, improved audio feedbacks, and various other improvements for your experiments. And there are new demos to show optimal use of the new iLink toolbox. That's been contributed mostly by the team at SR Research, so thank you very much to them. And Mario contributed a lot of improvements to ensure backwards compatibility so that your current code will continue to work and to optimally integrate with PsychToolbox. There are also improvements for display mirroring setups. These are for setups where you might have a stimulus display where you want really good visual timing, and but also a monitoring display. If you imagine, for example, a setup in an MRI scanner, it's important that the subject is getting the stimuli that are very well timed. But you as an experimenter that can't see that display because you're outside of the MRI scanner, you might want to still have an idea what's being shown. And so this ability gives you the option to use these mirror modes without impairing visual stimulation timing on your stimulus display, and also without needing special hardware. There are also improvements to movie playback, particularly in the domain of demanding, for example, 4K resolution and HDR movie playback via more efficient use of hardware video decoding. This allows, for example, parallel playback of multiple 4K HDR movies at 60 frames per second on suitable graphics cards under Linux and Windows. Another new feature is a new method of downloading PsychToolbox. Unfortunately, at the start of this year, GitHub removed Subversion front-end support, which disabled our installer, updater, and versioning. Thankfully, a workaround was contributed by the MathWorks open source team. And so there's a new automated workflow for generating a downloadable zip file with the PsychToolbox folder, and also options for installation via MATLAB's built-in add-on browser. There still needs to be a manual run of setup PsychToolbox and installation of dependencies like GStreamer.